Hi, I'm Kenny. If you are an adult and you are in the process of preparing your application for a Canada study permit, you probably have heard about such saying that it is very difficult to get your application approved if you are a mature applicant, or someone call it older applicant. You are pursuing a program of academic regression, or someone call it reverse study. You are changing your major, or even you just repeating your major. Is it true? In this video, I will try to examine these questions. Now let's start. First of all, let's look at the law. This is the Division 3, Issuance of Study Permits in the ARPR. The subsection B of Section 1 of Article 216 says an officer shall issue a study permit to a foreign national if, following an examination, it is established that the foreign national will leave Canada by the end of the period authorized for their stay under Division 2 of Part 9. This is to say that, to get your application for a Canada study permit approved, you have to prove that you will leave Canada by the end of your authorized stay. But how can you prove that you will leave Canada long before you enter Canada? You may not even have a clue about it. As a matter of fact, when the visa officer is assessing your application, they use another examination, which is, are you a genuine student? Because if you are a genuine student, meaning your travel purpose to Canada is to pursue an educational program, and therefore, you will of course leave Canada as soon as you complete your study. That sounds way more specific, doesn't it? Like I mentioned in last video, for K-12 students, and even fresh high school graduates, it is normally naturally satisfied that they are genuine students, as long as they prove they have enough funds to support their study in Canada. Because people in that age are supposed to study at school. However, it is not the case anymore when we are talking about adults of at least 22 years old, because many people in this age are supposed to work. Surely there are also many people of this age are pursuing further education, but you need to prove that you are this case. This is why a study plan is required for adult study permit application, especially for those applicants from developing countries. Due to the burden of proof is on the applicant, you need to prove your travel purpose to Canada is to study instead of to work illegally. Because normally Canada offers a much higher wage than most developing countries. To prove you are a genuine student, you have to satisfy the visa officer that you have a reasonable motivation to study at your circumstances. You need to explain the relationships among your background, including your educational history and work experience, your career goal or path, and your proposed program to study in Canada. Now let's look at some questions you may have when you prepare your study plan. As you see the requirement for a study plan from the documents checklist of the visa office instructions, you need to explain the connection between your past experience and your proposed program to study based on your career target. Someone may ask that, can I submit a study plan based on other factors than career development? For example, what if I just want to pursue that program purely out of my interest, and I don't plan to pursue a career development? Well, I should say that theoretically you can. However, you need to explain and prove that why you are pursuing that program out of interest only. For example, have you already obtained financial freedom, meaning no matter what you want to do, you don't have the problem of money? In that case, you can of course pursue any program of your interest only, and you don't need to rely on that program to support yourself or your career development. Unfortunately, in my past practice, I haven't seen any client like that yet. Not to mention, even in that case, you still need to explain why you are choosing Canada to pursue that program instead of your country of residence and nationality. In more cases, you can also pursue a program of your interest, and you still need to support your career development through the study of that program. You can surely combine your interest and career development together into your study plan. And there is one more thing you need to be very careful about in that case. That is, you need to establish the connection between your interest and your past experience, which is to answer the second question. Can you choose a program that you have no experience about at all? For the safety consideration, I wouldn't recommend you to choose a program that you have no experience about at all to prepare your study plan. However, if you really have a super strong intent to pursue that program, you can still try with it. But you need to explain that, even though you don't have any experience about that program before, how you became that much interested in that program. I believe there must be a good reason. Because let's think about another question. If the applicant does not have any experience about that field of that program, and he doesn't have a good reason for that, yet his study permit application can be approved, does that mean any study permit application can be approved with any experience of the applicant and any program of choice? Do you think that's possible? Of course not. Therefore, there must be a very good reason for you to choose that program to get your study permit application approved. I don't know if you will think about this question, but I had been thinking about this question for a long time, because I believe anyone has a basic human right of the freedom to choose any program he wants to study. For example, if you are a Canadian, when you graduate from high school, you are totally free to choose any program you like, as long as you can get the admission from that program. You don't need to prove anything to anyone, because that's your basic human right. However, why must a foreign national to prove this, to prove that, to enter Canada for study? Is it a violation to the basic human right? Well, after I did quite a lot of research, the answer is there is no constitutional right of the freedom to choose any program to study for a foreign national in Canada. For a foreign national, it is always a privilege to enter Canada and not a basic human right. Therefore, it is justified that the foreign national needs to prove he is a genuine student by a satisfactory study plan. Another most popular misunderstanding about the refusal is many people just say, I was refused because of my immigration intent. Is it true? Can any application be refused just because of immigration intent? Well, it somewhat makes sense, but not precise at all. This is subsection 2 of section 22 of the ARPA, the clause of due intent. It says, an intention by a foreign national to become a permanent resident does not preclude them from becoming a temporary resident if the officer is satisfied that they will leave Canada by the end of the period authorized for their stay. So as you see, the intention to become a permanent resident is normally what we call immigration intent. And it says that any application for a temporary resident cannot be refused just because of that immigration intent. Therefore, as long as you can satisfy the visa officer that you will leave Canada by the end of your authorized stay, it's totally okay for you to have the intent to immigrate to Canada. Someone may ask that, how can I satisfy the visa officer that I will leave Canada by the end of the authorized stay when I plan to immigrate to Canada to become a permanent resident? And what's the difference between becoming a permanent resident and not leaving Canada by the end of the authorized stay? Well, there is a huge difference, which is legitimacy, meaning that when you apply to become a permanent resident of Canada, you do it legally. But when you choose to overstay your status in Canada, you do it illegally. You don't become a permanent resident of Canada when you overstay your status, and you probably may never become a permanent resident of Canada because you don't comply with the ARPA, and therefore you are inadmissible, even if not forever, at least for a quite long time in the future. Therefore, it's totally okay for you to have immigration intent when you apply for a study permit. But you need to satisfy the visa officer that you will not immigrate to Canada illegally. Now let's going back to the question I raised at the very beginning of this video. Is it true that your application for a Canada study permit is impossible or not likely to succeed if you are a mature applicant, or also called older applicant, meaning you are 30 years old or more? You are pursuing an academic regression, or reverse study, meaning the level of your proposed program to study is lower than the credential you have already obtained. You are changing your major. For example, you have a bachelor's degree in business, and now you are pursuing a master's degree in computer science, or even you are just repeating your major. For example, you already have a master's degree in computer science, and you want to come to Canada to study another master's degree in computer science. I would say that these sayings make sense a little bit because among all the people all over the world, those choose to do so is only a tiny minority. Therefore, when you try to prove that you are doing something that only very few people will do, it's certainly difficult. However, this does not mean that you cannot succeed. I will explain how to prepare a satisfactory study plan to get your application approved in the following course. And I will share my several successful cases for each type of applicants. Nowadays, more and more people use AI every day. Some people even try to use AI to produce study plan. Is that a good idea? In my opinion, you cannot rely on AI completely to produce a satisfactory study plan. However, it is still very much useful. In my practice, I always write the study plan in English first by myself, and then use AI to refine it. It is super effective to correct all my typo and grammar error, and finally, get my study plan properly expressed. Now I believe you have understood what is a study plan, and why is it required. As to how to prepare a satisfactory study plan for an adult study permit application, I prepared a paid course for you. In this course of the series, I will discuss about what content must a study plan cover. Is there a typical pattern for a satisfactory study plan? And if yes, what's it like? The criteria for a satisfactory study plan. A step-by-step guide to develop a satisfactory study plan, followed by the case study of quite a dozen of cases, including old applicants, reverse study, changing major, and repeating major. There are both successful applications and refused ones, so that you can see the difference between them and learn it better. To learn this course better, you need to learn some prerequisite lessons, including the basics of Canada law, IRPA and IRPR, burden of proof and standard of proof. I believe these two lessons will help you master the knowledge in this course. So enjoy the learning. I'm Kenny. Learn my lessons on your way to Canada. See you in the course.